us have chosen to trade or to take this pandemic lightly. And I want to urge all leaders, particularly the political leaders, please urge your supporters, urge your people to observe the SOPs, because this trend, from my own perspective, is rather worrying. The increase in infections, the levels of infections in one single day is something we do not have in the 4 months, I think, or when we had the choice is entirely in our hands. Do we have what is required within us to ensure that this pandemic, this virus, does not have an exponential spread in the country?
Thank you, Byabakama, for that update. It was really pertinent for the Justice Simon Byabakama to give us that update on the standard operating procedures because of what we witnessed in the NRM primaries. There was zero adherence to the standard operating procedures. There was zero wearing of face masks. Some of them had them face masks on the chin, and they were not covering their mouth and nose or whatsoever. So I wanted to ask Mr. Byabakama what the Electoral Commission intends to do moving forward. But as you can see, with such a workshop like we are having right now, we are here to promote awareness on the standard operating procedure. So this is one of the ways the Electoral Commission is trying to sensitize the people right there in Uganda, so that as we head into this election and as you exercise your constitutional mandate, you also you're also cognizant of the fact that you have to protect your health and your neighbor and your family. Wearing a face mask, disinfecting all surfaces at all times, it's a must, and social distancing shouldn't be an option in that regard. My name is Romy Busiku, and you're watching NTV Uganda. We are here to commemorate the International Day of Democracy under the theme COVID-19, a spotlight on democracy. At this point, I'd like to invite the UNDP, that is the United Nations Development Programme Resident Representative to Uganda, that's none other than Ms. Elsie Atafua.
Thank you very much, Mr. Moderator. Good morning, ladies and gentlemen. So I would read a two-part statement, one on behalf of the United Nations family and UNDP, and one on behalf of the Secretary General of the United Nations, as delegated by the United Nations Resident Coordinator. The Chairperson, the Electoral Commission, Honorable Simon Byabakama, Excellencies and members of the Diplomatic Corps, and I'd like to particularly recognize the ambassadors of Norway, Sweden, Denmark, Austria, and Iceland, who are supporting the Strengthening Electoral Processes in Uganda project called SIPU, which is funding this initiative. Representatives of ministries, departments, and agencies of government. Again, I'd like to recognize the EC board and staff, the members of the Development Partners Community, colleagues from the United Nations family, and I'd like to recognize the Deputy Representative of UN Women and all the other colleagues who are connected online, including the representative of the World Health Organization. Colleagues from the private sector, academia, civil society, the media fraternity, distinguished participants, ladies and gentlemen. On behalf of the United Nations family, I welcome you to this important occasion as we join the rest of the world to observe International Day of Democracy 2020. Globally, this day provides an opportunity to review the state of democracy, to celebrate the gains achieved, and to dialogue on how to safeguard these gains for future posterity. The United Nations family is proud to celebrate this day with all Ugandans and to reaffirm our commitment to support Uganda in its democratic journey as espoused in the country's constitution. As you know, this gathering is not only a celebration, it is a significant opportunity to support a strategic and ongoing dialogue, drawing on our collective strengths and complementarities to provide the people of Uganda free, fair, peaceful, and safe elections in 2020-2021. Let me from the onset thank the government of Uganda for its leadership and cooperation towards this effort. I'm encouraged by the strength and consistency in the working relations we have built and continue to cultivate through cooperation with the United Nations family in achieving the Sustainable Development Goals, particularly the principle of leaving no one behind. We salute you. Ladies and gentlemen, this year, Uganda marks this day at a very momentous time for two important reasons. It is being celebrated as Uganda prepares for the next general elections in January, February 2021. These polls will be the fourth under a multi-party political dispensation. Second, the elections and all pre-election activities are taking place during this unprecedented time of the COVID pandemic that has adversely impacted the whole world. The United Nations Development Programme, together with the United Nations agencies, are honored to partner with the various state and non-state institutions, including the Electoral Commission, to dialogue and plan for the implementation of the country's electoral roadmap under this new normal context brought by the COVID-19 pandemic. I wish to highlight three messages on this International Day of Democracy. First, as the country implements the electoral roadmap, all the electoral stakeholders must reflect on how best they engage in the electoral process to enhance the democratic outcomes and also minimize the risk of spreading COVID-19. Here in Uganda, the Electoral Commission, a key partner of the United Nations, has undertaken extensive consultation with stakeholders, and as a result, the Electoral Commission has issued the standard operation procedures to guide the safe conduct of election activities amidst COVID-19. These are in alignment with the guidelines issued by the Ministry of Health and the World Health Organization. Of concern, however, is a mixed level of adherence to the guidelines across board, including some open flouting of the standard operating procedures that we have witnessed in some of the initial electoral activities. The challenge is therefore in adherence and in enforcement. And this is not the responsibility of the Electoral Commission or the government alone. This is a whole of society responsibility if we are to meaningfully deal with COVID-19 pandemic. Adhering to these guidelines from the Electoral Commission and the Ministry of Health by all Ugandans is critical in ensuring a safe, inclusive, transparent, and peaceful election. The United Nations is committed to working with all stakeholders to support awareness raising on the standard operating procedures and to support stakeholders to abide and collectively enforce their adherence to the SOPs. Ladies and gentlemen, the second key message I wish to convey is for all stakeholders to safeguard peace and social cohesion as the country moves towards the general elections. Regrettably, we have witnessed across the country instances of violence, tensions being fueled by provocative language, and also huge increase in reports of gender-based violence. Violence should not be tolerated, especially violence against women and children. Uganda has for long enjoyed peace and stability that has enabled the achievement of development gains. On this International Day of Democracy, I urge all the stakeholders to commit to jealously guard peace and stability as citizens exercise their democratic rights. As UNDP and indeed the United Nations family, we continue to support these efforts, particularly the 2030 Agenda for Sustainable Development, specifically the Sustainable Development Goal 16 on developing effective, accountable, and transparent institutions, as well as Sustainable Development Goal 5 on ensuring women's full and effective participation and equal opportunities for leadership at all levels of decision-making processes. This is really anchored in the Strengthening Electoral Processes in Uganda project, simply called SEPU. Through this SEPU project, UNDP in partnership with the UN Resident Coordinator's Office, UN Women, UN Office of the High Commission for Human Rights, and the United Nations Educational, Scientific, and Cultural Organization, UNESCO, are working with various stakeholders, both state and non-state, including the Electoral Commission, in contributing to the following. 1, strengthening transparency and inclusion in the electoral process. 2, enhancing institutional capacity for the Electoral Commission and other electoral stakeholders. And 3, improving peace-building mechanisms. The project is funded through a basket fund arrangement with generous contributions from the governments of Norway, Sweden, Austria, Denmark, Iceland, and UNDP headquarters, all of which have representatives joining us today, either physically or virtually. We sincerely thank you for this support. Ladies and gentlemen, the third and final message I wish to convey is for all stakeholders to collectively focus on post-COVID-19 recovery and resilience building. Uganda, like many countries, has been seriously impacted by COVID-19 and is seeking to recover from the pandemic. As we build forward better, our collective efforts must therefore seek to move the country forward through peaceful elections, as well as ensuring strong commitment to the adherence of the COVID-19 SOPs. This will call for us to build on and consolidate Uganda's development gains and not to erode it. This will call for us to focus on national interest and not individual or group interest. And this will call for us to truly actualize our country's motto, for God and for my country. In other words, we owe it to ourselves and generations to come that the foundations of peace and stability are guarded. In conclusion, I reiterate the United Nations Development Programme and the United Nations family continued commitment to working with all stakeholders to support Uganda's democratic processes for the benefit of the people of Uganda. It is my hope that the outcomes of this gathering will constructively influence and fortify Uganda's democratic process as we approach 2021 election. Please count on the full support of the United Nations family. As I conclude, I'd like to extend my appreciation to the Electoral Commission for the long and trusted partnership. Now let me read the Secretary General's message, which I'm reading on behalf of the United Nations Resident Coordinator. And it reads, as the world confronts COVID-19, democracy is crucial in ensuring the free flow of information, participation in decision-making, and accountability for the response to the pandemic. Yet, since the beginning of the crisis, we have seen the emergency used in a range of countries to restrict democratic processes and civic space. This is essentially dangerous in places where democracy roots are shallow and institutional checks and balances are weak. The crisis is also highlighting and aggravating long neglected injustices, from inadequate health system to social protection gaps, digital divides, and unequal access to education, from environmental degradation to racial discrimination and violence against women. Along with profound human toll, these inequalities are themselves threats to democracy. Well before the pandemic, frustration was rising and trust in public authorities was declining. A lack of opportunities was driving economic unease and social unrest. Today, it is clear that governments must do more to listen to people demanding change, open new channels for dialogue, and respect freedom of peaceful assembly. On this International Day of Democracy, let us seize this pivotal moment to build a more equal, inclusive, and sustainable world with full respect for human rights. I wish us all a peaceful and happy International Day of Democracy. Thank you very much.
Well, that is the United Nations Development Programme resident representative to Uganda, Elsie Atefua. She couldn't have sent that message home any better. Violence in an election is totally uncalled for. And as NMG, the Nation Media Group, we continue to reiterate the importance of a peaceful electoral process in this country. And as you exercise your electoral mandate or constitutional mandate, you also have to be cognizant of the fact that we are in the COVID-19 pandemic, which has wrought havoc on a global scale. Yes, All over the world, we are now grappling with 29 million plus positive cases of the coronavirus. And here in Uganda alone, that's 4,978 positive cases of the coronavirus, and we've lost 56 people. So as we proceed with this electoral process, it's important that the people in Uganda, the citizens, are cognizant of the fact that there is a pandemic that has wrought havoc on the global scale, and it has not spared Uganda at all. So we are going to be reiterating the standard operating procedures and guidelines for conducting elections in a COVID-19 environment. Let me use this opportunity to invite Paul Bukenya, the spokesperson of the Electoral Commission, to actually give us more updates on the SOPs. Bukenya?
Thank you, Romeo, and good morning once again, all protocol observed. Humbled to be the one to take you through this session. And I'll draw attention to the SOPs that were issued by the Electoral Commission on the 17th of August this year. The Commission, of course, recognizing the situation, the pandemic around, observe the unique health challenges that the COVID-19 situation has brought us into. So election activities cannot be conducted in the normal way we've been doing elections. Accordingly, we issued SOPs to guide various activities that will be conducted during the pre-nomination period, where we are right now. We've not nominated candidates as Electoral Commission, but there is a range of electoral activity taking place. Political parties, for example, are conducting their internal party processes. We call it pre-nomination. Then during the nomination exercise itself, which brings together many people, aspiring candidates, agents and supporters, and of course, Electoral Commission staff. Then during the campaign period, which is the time when candidates go out to solicit for support from the voters. And then of course, polling day. A detailed SOPs for polling days will be issued in due course. For purposes of today, our meeting, we will focus on the pre-nomination, nomination, and the campaign period. So how has the Commission guided stakeholders to conduct themselves in a safe manner during the pre-nomination, nomination, and the campaign period? Of course, all these activities are very interactive, and one of the things we looked at is the collection of nomination forms. As the chairperson outlined already, we are heading for nomination of candidates at local government level. These are the biggest, level that brings together many aspiring candidates. They're in thousands, hundreds of thousands, if we can say that. Aspiring candidates and their supporters, and this is how we've guided. In the issuance of nomination forms, there is contact, there is object-to-object risk, transmission of COVID, people coming together, and collection of supporter forms, supporter signatures. So we've guided that aspiring candidates will be able to access nomination forms via our website, so that there is they limit accessing physically the offices, but they can also collect nomination forms from our offices. And right now, as we speak, the nomination forms in hard copy were sent to the districts and they're being collected. We know that some people have also collected the forms from the website. It has helped a lot. Just a phone call, can I download these forms? Are they genuine? Are they okay? We say, that's our website. No, this is not how we've been doing things. They said, but there's COVID. Just download that form. Everything you need is there. We even imposed a digital signature. That form is genuine. So we've had a positive, higher traffic coming to our website as a result. And I think it has reduced on the number of people coming to the offices physically, and therefore reducing on the level of interaction, which exposes public to risk of COVID-19. So far, 76, and I don't know, maybe today there's someone else, 76 aspirants for presidential have collected nomination forms from our office, while others have picked forms from the website and guidelines from the website. The website has become a very good tool. We've guided that Aspirants for general elections and parliamentary can also access forms physically, but where they are not able to, or where they are able, if they are able to access the internet, they should do that so that there is reduced traffic coming into the offices. In the process, when you approach our offices physically, definitely you cannot proceed to the offices without wearing a mask. And of course, washing hands, if facilities are there, and the social distancing. What about the process of collection of supporter signatures? Aspiring candidates are required under our respective laws to collect signatures to support their nominations. For example, an aspiring presidential candidate needs to raise support from at least, we have 146 districts in Uganda. You have to obtain support from at least 110 districts and 100 signatures from each district. So how do you do it safely? We've guided that in the process of doing the collection, you should wash your hands as you approach the homes. When you enter the compounds of people, wash your hands, put on your masks, wash your hands when you're approaching the home and when you are leaving, because you know, in the process, you may find that the person you visited is the one with COVID-19. So aspiring candidates and their agents are encouraged therefore to observe this when you're going to collect signatures. Make sure you observe the hygiene protocols that have been put in place by the Ministry of Health. It will save you, it will save the people who are going to collect the signatures from. So the voters signing, you know that some voters use their thumbprints. Who are using thumbprinting nomination forms are also supposed and encouraged to wear face masks and to wash their hands before thumbprinting and of course after thumbprinting, so that there is enhanced protection. So both the voters and aspiring candidates have the obligation to ensure compliance in the wearing of masks, washing of hands, using sanitizers, and observing social distances. Now, given that this activity is taking place down in the local communities, above soap, washing the hands with soap is highly recommended, because at least this is something that the rural communities, our people are already familiar with, washing your hands with soap. What about conduct of nomination activities? We have guided that we will provide, and we have started on that. We did that during the nominations for special interest groups. The commission will have hand washing facilities, water and a bar of soap, and sanitizers at all nomination centers. Nominations will be conducted at district headquarters and at county headquarters for certain categories of local governments. So the commission has planned and budgeted for that purpose. And we made sure that we are limiting the number of people approaching our centers for purpose of nomination. So aspiring candidates who are here with us, who are watching, we want to emphasize that we'll only allow you, the candidate, the person proposing your name, and the seconder. So that means a group of 3 persons is easy to manage and to observe the SOPs for purposes of nominations. And we've guided that candidates can only use 2 vehicles, so no processions. That emphasizes the issue of processions. And processions, as we know, create a risk for contracting COVID-19. So returning officers who are conducting this exercise, of course, also our staff, we are briefing them, we have briefed them, and this week we are also continuing with engagement with them Thursday and Friday to strengthen these, protocols further and the procedures so that they are enforced during the nominations. As you're aware, the first level of nomination starts on Monday, 21st September. So we shall not allow other persons to come to the nomination centers except for purposes of nomination. And that means the candidate, the supporter, and the second, and possibly your driver. So all facilities at the nomination centers, venues, tables, chairs, door handles shall be sanitized. They will be sanitized and disinfected regularly to reduce and mitigate the spread of COVID-19. That's a measure that we put in place. What about conduct of campaigns? So Ministry of Health measures which are in force up to this point control public gatherings. And therefore, public rallies, mass public rallies remain banned. We have guided, though, that candidates may organize and hold regulated campaign meetings. And we've emphasized that conveners of such meetings must ensure that the measures and guidelines are put in place to prevent and combat the spread of COVID-19. We will work at ensuring that they are strictly observed. For example, social distancing, wearing of masks, and washing of hands. This is how we have recommended. We've recommended that persons preparing to conduct meetings must work with us as Electoral Commission, our returning officer, and the police in the electoral district to inspect the venue and see that it is suitable. When we are coming here, there was inspection of this venue to ensure that it can accommodate about 70 persons and who are seated and socially distanced. This is what we mean. So we've not put a specific number in our guidelines because we know that some political parties, some aspiring candidates want to use the Boma grounds, which is a big place that can take up to possibly 50,000 people. And they want to have a meeting in a tent for about 500 people. Now that is very reasonable and very, very, responsible of a candidate to say, we are going to use the Boma grounds, the district ground, the school ground, and we can inspect it together and ensure that the tent that is put there can actually have this number of people. Distance, you're observing the 2-meter distance, the spacing that is recommended. So the role of police then comes in here. It is very key. We say that the role of police is very key. Working together and consulting the district task force is very, very important on the part of an aspiring candidate or on the part of a candidate. These should be very close partners as we prepare public meetings. What the Electoral Commission has emphasized for purposes of candidates meetings, and which we want to also reiterate, is that the health and safety of citizens, voters, candidates, election staff, and other stakeholders, including non-voters, our children, the communities, should be the most important consideration during the electoral process. So if you are an aspiring candidate, if you're a candidate, you should put the health of these people as the most important above anything else. Because the commission, of course, like we said in our message, we want you alive on polling day. First of all, alive and then healthy, because you may be alive, but you're not able to come to the polling station to vote for yourself. But also the voters, the supporters should be alive and healthy, that they can come and vote, because that's why we are going out there to campaign. Of course, you want people, ultimately, the end is the polling day. You want someone to come and vote for you. So we are sending a message that let's keep the candidates alive and healthy. And also let's keep the voters and the supporters alive and healthy before, during, and after elections. There is guidance that the Commission has provided for providing for use of media, and I hope I still have a minute or two. Yes. To achieve non-contact engagement, to achieve remote engagement, to achieve low human-to-human interactions, the Electoral Commission has guided on the use of non-contact means to engage with audiences. These are means that candidates have always used, but we are advising that they should be taken to another level given the circumstances that are unique, that are not ordinary. So we are advising the use of things that we've used before, but now, of course, at another scale, like posters have been used. They create visibility for the candidate. The banners create visibility. Your photograph is there, your name is there, the political party name. Even the colors, they are there, the symbol that you've been given, all of those things that promote you as a candidate are there, and they can help to keep you visible in the electorate, or rather in the constituency, without bringing people together and exposing them to COVID-19. We've talked about, flyers that can be issued responsibly, of course, carefully. We've talked about radio announcements. These ones have been done before. Please vote for me, I'm your candidate. Where a candidate is able, television announcement. We've talked about an announcement in the paper or an advert, like we've done before. SMS. SMS has been used in elections before. If a candidate can afford that, that is better. The Commission has also urged the use of other non-contact means like new digital media. This includes media platforms like social media. Some people are already using that. We have seen it, and I think it is working. It's going all over the place. Then, of course, Facebook, Twitter, YouTube, and websites, those who can do that. But we've also advised that use of one-on-one, kakuyege, walking through the village, the parish, and responsibly, like we do every other day, because some levels of candidates don't do mass rallies by nature of their candidature. They don't do that. And I think it's also important to not to alarm them that, you know what, you're going to suffer because there is no mass rallies, because they've not been doing that. The councillor has possibly 2 parishes or 3 parishes with 3 months to campaign, and during the 3 months, they can reach almost every home. They can talk to people in the gardens. Even as they're at a distance, I salute you, I am the candidate. You know, that kind of engagement that we know that is very typical down there in the rural areas. So not all candidates actually do mass rallies. So let us encourage them to use the traditional means they've been using to limit the interaction, including one-on-one, or commonly known as kakuyege. Because I can talk to you without coming close to you, I can talk to you with my mask on, and then I tell you that I'm the candidate. And you have, you know, a candidate has 3 months and two parishes or 3 parishes to do that. I think you can achieve that. We've also encouraged the use of broadcasts like Chizindalo, because with permission from UCC, there is a consideration for use of Chizindalo. Chizindalo is when you can use a community radio in the marketplace. Where I come from, my village across there, there's an announcement in the morning. They greet us, they lead us in a prayer in the morning. They tell us things that happen. In the afternoon, they announce a few things. In the evenings, they announce a kid who is lost, things like that. You know, that announcement can also help to go a long way. But also the commission has made provisions where people are to use media. They will not be subjected to higher prices or, you know, prices going up, because the engagement has made with regulators to ensure that they do not hike prices because candidates are going to use radio stations for purposes of this broadcast. So these are all part of the measures to reinforce our SOPs, including the use of media, both private and government. And I would like to stop at that moment and engage Romeo if you have something else to. Thank you very much for listening.
But don't move away. Don't move away. You just stand there. I have a quick interrogation for you. Now, during the primaries, there were some concerns that were reaching our desks at NTV Uganda. Many of the voters were saying, especially persons with disabilities, accessibility to polling stations. It was very hard for some persons with disabilities. Accessibility to polling stations, number one. Even the hand washing points at the polling stations, for those who had made it to the polling area, they couldn't actually access the hand washing points. Persons with disabilities suffering from dwarfism. You're too short, you can't reach the hand washing point. So what are you going to be doing to ensure that this is not replicated on the national stage? And you also said that we are going to be using media, but then we saw the example of Bobby Wine, Chagulanyi, Robert Chagulanyi, who was being frustrated in Mbale when he was at the radio station, and Baba FM. Where's the assurance that on the national stage, this won't be replicated again? Such issues and incidences, if you can help us shed more light on that.
Oh, wow, thank you, Romeo. Yes, there are lessons, of course, we've learned from the special interest groups about implementing and putting into effect the SOPs. For example, even the hygiene of the places, we don't have polling stations. They are not our places that we rent or we use public spaces. So we have learned some lessons in the issues that come up, including access to those facilities. I think that is something that will be looked at as we do our final preparations for polling in the national elections, as we do the training of election officials, because every lesson we learned at that stage goes into, we don't want it to become a problem in the subsequent level of election. So that is something that's not a doubt. Yeah, and for purposes of this meeting, of course, I know it's also being recorded. Yeah, so challenges like accessing the facilities, because some are mounted on stools that are a bit high and it becomes hard. And then, of course, generally helping persons with disabilities to have a smooth process, electoral process and electoral experience. That's training that we give our officials, and I think we will take it up. I have some officers here already who I can see they are noting seriously. But we also call upon the general public to help our communities Persons with disabilities are people we stay with every day. We help them cross the road. We go them to church. We help them at home. They are members of our communities. They are members of our families. They are our families. So I think we need to work together to make sure they have, you know, a dignified electoral experience so that it does not become a problem. Otherwise, they will not participate in the election. And yet it's a right. And today we are celebrating democracy. So on the matter of media, use of media, and access and denial and the issues, the challenges that have come up, it is an issue that we've engaged on with Uganda Police. And today we'll have representation also from Uganda Police. How do we enforce the SOPs? Why is there no standardized, you know, approach in that? So the engagement and sensitization of Uganda Police Force continues. It started. The SOPs came out the beginning of August after a consultative process. Activity is already high, and there are many questions. How do we handle this situation? It's like every situation was unique. So we've called both political actors who want to go on media and also engaged with Uganda Police who enforce, so that we move together and do not hinder, you know, exercise of rights, freedoms and rights. But at the same time, also we achieve the objective of the SOPs, which is to combat the spread of COVID-19. So there's an engagement that's been going on. I believe it has been at a high level, so that we don't get problems at operational level down in the districts. And we believe that it's going to give us good results. I also look forward to hearing from UPF when they come over here, how they have improved on that area. But I think that is something that has been handled.
Thank you very much, Paul Bukenya. He's the spokesperson of the Electoral Commission. Now, this event today is being funded by the Strengthening Electoral Processes in Uganda project. That is the SEPU project in conjunction with the Electoral Commission and the United Nations Development Program, where we are commemorating the International Day of Democracy. Yes, under the theme COVID-19, a spotlight on democracy. And that's why we are here. Let me also bring in our panelists for the day. I'll start with Dr. Monica Musenero. She's the Presidential Advisor on Epidemics and Pandemics. She will take over her seat. Yes, there she is. And yes. We are indeed honored to have you, Dr. Monica Musenero. You can just have a seat right over there. And we also do have Mr. Moses Kafero. Mr. Moses Kafero will be taking the question from Paul Bukenya when he mentioned that Uganda Police Force should actually be giving us an update on what they are doing to ensure that all political parties are allowed to participate in this electoral process, not what we saw during the primaries where the NRM were allowed to do open rallies, but when an opposition politician is going to a radio station, they are frustrated in that regard. So we shall have Mr. Moses Kafero representing Uganda Police Force. Mr. Moses, are you in the audience? You can take over your seat. All right, as we await on Mr. Moses Kafero, we also do have Mr. Zaidi Mukasa from the National Consultative Forum, who will be taking over his seat also, Mr. Zaidi Mukasa. And via Zoom, we shall be joined by Dr. Jonas Tegeni Waldemariam. He's the World Health Organization representative to Uganda. Yes, he shall be joining us online via Zoom. And also we shall be having Ms. Helen Kezi-Nwoha. She is the Executive Director, Women's International Peace Center. All right. Amazing. So I think we shall have some opening remarks from Dr. Musenero. Monica.
Thank you very much. I'm very honored to be part of this discussion today. And before I make my remarks, I would like to be in a room where SOPs are observed. I don't like seeing people's noses out. I don't feel safe. So there are so many people in the room. They have their masks on their chins. We are talking about SOPs. It starts with me. So if we can all cover our noses
And Mr. Moderator, you can speak with your mask on. Okay, thank you very much. As a scientist and at the center of designing the national response and making sure that Uganda is safe from COVID, we started very early. And there were mixed reactions from different countries. Some countries were postponing elections. And at first we thought Uganda would postpone elections because when you mix politics with a delicate balance of managing the speed at which COVID spreads in our nation, it becomes very, very complicated. However, once we were told of the implications of not holding elections, scientists engaged in a very, very prolonged, protracted, and delicate discussion, trying to make sure that we keep the democratic processes in Uganda going, while at the same time keeping the country safe. Right from the beginning in our control of the epidemic, the goal was not to prevent the virus from coming, or because that's not possible. However, the goal has always been to control the speed at which the virus spreads so that we can be able to manage the number of cases which come. So we discussed Ministry of Health and all the science that are involved and worked with the Electoral Commission as well as the different parties, those who are willing to develop SOPs. However, whereas we began very well in compliance, as we moved along, the population started not to really comply. And there was that disconnect between the population and the implementers or the responders trying to control the epidemic. And the political activity was gaining momentum at a time when there was deterioration in adherence to SOPs. Our observers from other countries that we have studied have shown a sharp rise in number of cases following elections. But we thought that because the elections are coming at a time when a lot more is known about the virus, Uganda would be able to weather this. To our dismay, the politicians, the people who are campaigning, the moment they started the campaigns, they totally disregarded everything that was advised. And it has been heartbreaking for some of us who have worked delicately to protect the population. And then to see this, because we know what's going to happen. And we started warning, and now we are all observing what's happening. Cases are rising sharply, deaths are rising, and I want to state here that the number of cases we see reported are not the total number of cases that are out there. These are just indicative of the trend the disease is taking. There are so many more sick people out there. The number of deaths we are seeing are not the only individuals dying of this disease. They are just an indication. So we are rising sharply as the political process picks up. Unlike other countries where the COVID had not yet spread in the community, in Uganda, the political campaign peak is coming at the time when the disease has taken off in the community. And unless everybody involved takes this serious, we might see a serious disaster.